Hi everyone. In this video, we're going to be talking about the number 2 threat to your productivity. We're going to be looking at two different questions. What is the second threat to my productivity? And what can I do about it right now? The answer up front is that the second threat to your productivity is distractions. And what you can do about it right now is minimize tech distractions and reduce people interruptions. My intention in this video is to help you get away from distractions, poor attention, and ultimately working more, and then move you towards being more productive with less distractions so you can focus more on what matters at work and then be fully present at home. If you're new here, my name is Jared and I'm a high school teacher turned leadership coach. This topic of distractions and the need to focus is particularly important to me because I am blessed to be a husband and a father, and I want to give the best to my family. So when work bleeds into my home life, because I'm not being productive at work, it impacts my family in a negative way. As a result of this, I've spent years researching and experimenting productivity in order to give my best at work and be fully present at home. In the first section, we're going to be examining the question, how are distractions threatening your productivity? When we are continually distracted, it usually means that we are switching from one task to another. This does a number of things to us, including draining our energy, taking up time because we're constantly reorienting ourselves to different tasks, reducing our ability to go deep on whatever we're currently focusing on. And it also creates a brain space where we are more reactionary than proactive. And this is particularly nasty because when we are in a reactionary brain space, we also make really poor decisions. As we are continually distracted, we don't really accomplish our one big thing for the day. And sadly, our best effort fails when we are distracted. And when that happens over a long period of time, we lose our impact. I'm speaking from experience here because over the first 5 years of my career, I allowed distractions to dictate my workday. Rather than getting the most essential things done during the day, I would be distracted while at work and then let my actual work bleed into my time at home. I knew my effectiveness at work was not where I wanted it to be, and my presence at home was more limited. Thankfully, after a lot of research and experimentation, I learned that there are two main culprits to distractions: technology and people. And the good news is that these can quickly be addressed. In the next section, we're going to answer the question, how do I reduce technology distractions? We're going to go over a variety of different suggestions, and I encourage you to treat these suggestions as experiments so that you can start today and reduce the internal pressure or voice that says you got to do this perfectly, because they're just experiments. The first suggestion is this: turn your phone to black and white and then leave that on. Remember, phones are built to be visually appealing, so reducing the color makes them less desirous to use. This has an actual positive effect in your brain because the brain reacts to certain colors with more urgency. So when you take away some of the colors, particularly the red bubbles, that allows you to stay in a more calm state of mind. The next suggestion is shut off all notifications from your phone except for the ringer and a few selected apps. I really suggest that you eliminate almost every possible notification except the ones that are critical for you to stay in communication with the most important people you need to stay in communication with. If it's not critical, turn off the notification. At first, this is going to be uncomfortable to do because you may be used to a significant amount of notifications. And it's a very freeing experience because rather than continually being pinged over everything, you will now be pinged only for that which you've chosen. And if it goes through during a period of deep focus, you know that you probably ought to check it. My next suggestion is to remove social media from your phone. I'm not suggesting that you delete social media accounts, but that you merely delete the apps from your phone so that you can actually access those at a more inconvenient time. By all means, still access it on any other kind of device, but just don't have on-demand access to it where you will be tempted to continually be distracted. And by creating that level of friction, it'll allow you to be more present with whatever you're currently doing or working on. My next suggestion for you is to check your email and messaging at preset intervals throughout the day. I'm not suggesting that you stop digitally communicating with people altogether. I'm suggesting that you would actually limit the amount of time you check those emails so that you don't go down a rabbit hole. And by all means, if something is critical and urgent and you need to respond to it, please do. But we're trying to reduce the habit of over-checking and over-communicating so that you can focus on the work that matters. My next suggestion is for you to communicate all of these experimental changes with people who need to know. You don't operate in isolation, and therefore any experiments you're trying are going to impact other people. Talk to those people, let them know why you're doing this and how this might impact your ability to be more effective and present. And my final suggestion is to regularly assess what is working and make adjustments accordingly. All of these suggestions and experiments might work in one season of life, but not in another. They might work in one role at work, but not in a different one. So by you regularly assessing yourself and making the needed adjustments, you'll find a place of continual balance. In the next section, we're going to be examining the question, how do I reduce people distractions? Before we jump into this section, I think it's important to remember 3 key things. People and people's interruptions are 2 different things. People are important and they are not to be eliminated as if they are another distraction. People's interruptions are different, and those will impact your workflow unless you create norms around them. So the following suggestions are an attempt to reduce the interruptions brought on by people. Suggestion number 1 is let others know when you are busy. If you have an office, this can be as simple as closing the door and putting a sign on it. If you have an open workspace, this is as simple as putting on some headphones and putting a sign saying, doing deep work right now, please come back later. This can be uncomfortable depending on the kind of work environment you're in. However, this will create a situation in which you could actually have periods of deep focus, and it will reduce the amount of interruptions you get. Suggestion number 2 is be available to others when you are not in a deep focus and busy zone. If you're going to create space to not be disturbed at certain periods of time, make sure that when you are available to others, be fully available to support. Suggestion number 3 is to change your mindset and language when you are going up to people and potentially interrupting their time. So rather than going up to someone and expecting them to answer your request right then and there, remember that they might be doing important work in the moment. So it's helpful to frame your request like this. I have a non-urgent request that can wait until this time. When's a good time to come back and ask you? Or it might be something like, I have a really urgent request that only you can solve and it has to be solved now. I'm so sorry to interrupt. Can you please help? The idea is for you to be intentional about the request you're going to the person with, and also about the level of importance and urgency that the request actually is. Let them know so they can make the right decision. The next suggestion is to communicate all of these experimental changes to the people you're working with. Like we mentioned before, you don't operate in isolation, and there are people who will be affected by some of these changes. Explain what the hope is in all of this and how this might help you and them be more effective. My next suggestion is assess what is working and make adjustments accordingly. Again, all of these suggestions might work in one season of life or in one role or in one context, but not in another. So by continually assessing yourself and what you need and what your team needs, you're going to be able to reduce distractions and interruptions for that season of time. In the next section, we're going to be answering the question, what if this is still hard? All of these suggestions and experiments have come from a variety of books I've read, classes I've taken, courses I've taught, and endless experimentation. I generally do all of these suggestions, but sometimes it's hard or difficult or even annoying. Recently, for example, when my kids were really sick and I was extremely sleep deprived, I brought social media and color back on my phone and endlessly doom scrolled in the middle of the night. So after years of both failure and successes in this regard, Here are a couple suggestions I have if this is still hard for you. Suggestion number 1 is be kind to yourself. This is going to be a transition, a bit uncomfortable, and require patience. Suggestion number 2 is explore why this matters to you. Ask yourself, what are the benefits of all of this? You can either explore on your own, as I enjoy doing through journaling, or have a conversation with others. My next suggestion is to explore the friction. Here are a few helpful things for you to consider as you might be finding some of this difficult. With respect to work, you might want to ask, what is the stated expectation of always being available through digital communication? What is the unstated expectation of always being available? If my output increased and my results got better, would my team be open to this experiment? With respect to life outside of work, it might be helpful to ask some of these questions. If turning off notifications or eliminating social media from your phone is difficult, why is that? What bad can happen? What good can happen from doing this? What are the stated or unstated expectations of my people group with respect to always being available to them through any type of digital or social media communication? How can I create a situation that is a win for me, where I am reducing distractions, and also a win for others where I am available to them? My next suggestion is for you to talk through the friction with others. Don't just problem solve on your own, but bring in others to help problem solve with you. Not only will they be able to get a sense of your why, help you solve it, but they'll be invested in your growth in this area as well. And also, this might create a dialogue for them in terms of their own distractions and interruptions. My final suggestion is to always keep experimenting. Remember, this is an experiment to help eliminate distractions so that you can better your focus at work and be more present at home. This may be hard, but it's worth continual experimentation. When you revert back to a period of distraction and continual interruption, that's okay. Get back to experimenting. The aim of this video was to discuss the number 2 threat to your productivity, which I argued was distractions through technology and interruptions through people. We looked at 4 different questions in this video. How are distractions threatening your productivity? How do I reduce technology distractions? How do I reduce people distractions? What if this is still hard? My encouragement for you is to give these experiments a try. To make this process easier for you, I have included a free guide linked in the description below, where you have access to all of these suggestions in list form. The aim of this channel is to help you become more effective in life, and we do this by dissecting topics around leadership, relationships, and productivity. In this particular series, we are examining threats to your productivity. Threat number 1 is poor decisions. Threat number 2 is distractions, and get subscribed to find out about threat number 3. If this video interested you, go ahead and check out this video where I talk about the number 1 threat to your productivity, which I argue is poor decision making.